Thank you, Norman Brentley. You know, that's one of my seasonal favorites. Every time I hear Christmas time is here, I think of the little peanuts, but it brings back my inner child. It's such a wonderful, sweet song, so thank you. And thank you to the Richard Payne Trio, to our wonderful Richard. Glory and honor. Yes. Great and glorious morning, everyone. I'm Reverend Cheryl McCullough, and welcome to this third Sunday in Advent. And thank you for choosing to worship with us today. We have someone from our prayer team holding us in prayer this entire service. Can you feel it? I can. We're here for you, with you, and you can continue to submit prayer requests and requests for spiritual counseling online or call the office, and the appropriate ministry will be notified. You know, this is what I want you to do, seriously. Take time this week to make a connection with us, more than just beyond the Sunday service. So much is going on. And the things that we offer can certainly keep your spirits high. Wednesday morning is our prayer service at 7:30 a.m. And then Wednesday afternoon at 3 p.m. we have Divine Connections with Reverend Sylvia. And this is where you do get that opportunity to speak and share what's on your mind, what's happening with you. And then we have our mindfulness meditation session this Saturday at 10 a.m. And of course, coming up is our Christmas Eve candlelighting service, which is Thursday, December 24th at 7 p.m. And we end this year with our New Year's Eve burning bowl service, beginning at 11:15 p.m. on Thursday, December 31st. And we will be sending out information because you will still have that opportunity to write your letters to God and, of course, burn those things that you no longer want to be a part of your life. And we're talking about burning in the sense of not literally, but clearing them out and eliminating them from your consciousness. And coming up in the new year, we have a vision board workshop on Saturday, January 9th. And our new member class and orientation on January 25th through January 28th. So there is much that we offer you here from Unity of Washington, D.C. Take advantage of it. Read those constant contact emails. We send them out almost daily now so that we can keep you in the loop. Check in with them or on our website at unityofwashingtondc.org. for all the services and activities that we offer here. Now take a deep breath and ready yourself for today's lesson. As our beloved Sylvia, Reverend Sylvia, shares with us the healing that must take place in our human consciousness in order for us to rise above whatever is the fray that we are dealing with, but to be enlightened into our spiritual consciousness. So here she is to share with us Conscious Healing, Part 2.
Thank you, Reverend Cheryl. And greetings to all you beloved souls. You know, when I look into this camera, I can feel your presence. I feel as if you're right here with me in this sanctuary. And we are celebrating and we are divinely connected to one another. So I thank you for being with us and adding your light and your consciousness to this entire experience, because we are a part of the collective, part of a higher consciousness that weaves us all together in love. This is such a wonderful time, a wonderful season. I too, Reverend Cheryl, love the song, Christmas Time is Here. And it does remind me of the Charlie Brown Peanuts show that used to come on when I was younger. But Christmas time is here, and you all may not be able to see it, but our sanctuary is still decorated so beautifully. And even though I acknowledged them last week, I want to give another shout out to our wonderful Scott Wallace and Michael Haley for coming in and decorating the church so that the 10 of us could still feel the Christmas spirit. And so I thank you all for that. And speaking of the Christmas spirit, did you enjoy our Christmas concert? Yes. It was just a delight sitting down with my mother and getting into the spirit and hearing how fabulous our choir is once again. So it just ushered us into the start of the Christmas season. So I want to thank our choir. I know that you all enjoyed, as I was looking at some of the comments, that you all enjoyed being able to just sit back and hear yourselves and see yourselves and enjoy the work that you give, the gift that you give through your music. So thank you so much for that. And since we are in the start of the Christmas season, I do want to take this moment to thank you, the members and the worshipers and the congregants and those who simply come and add to this spiritual community called Unity of Washington, D.C. I want to thank you because every year, we participate in a program called Adopt a Family. And the other program is Holiday Cheer for Seniors. And while I do miss when we bring in all of the toys and the clothes and the food that we share with families that we adopt, and it's such a beautiful sight to see the sanctuary overrun with bikes and presents and gifts, you still stepped up. You still stepped up because I was just amazed because we raised through you and your generosity and your love and your spirit of truth and giving and sharing about what we are. We raised over $15,000 that we are going to be able to give to the families so that they can have still a wonderful Christmas. We'll have toys and food and everything. Yes. So our kids will still have the joy of coming down on Christmas morning and seeing their house and filled with gifts of love from us. And of course, our holiday cheer for seniors, we're still going to be able to feed. Although we're not here in the church preparing our meals, we were also able to raise a generous amount so that we could purchase gift cards for food for our seniors so that they will still have a meal and the ability to have a good Christmas meal. I love your hearts. I truly love your hearts. You are a beautiful community, and I'm grateful and thankful to be able to serve you. But before I move on to our message this morning, this is also the Sunday that we have designated to celebrate and honor those beautiful spirits who have completed their pledge and have secured a leaf or an acorn or a dove for our blessing tree, which we'll be able to once again view in person. But the fact that they too took the time to complete a pledge, and many of them, this is their second or third pledge that they're completing. And normally we call people up and we give them a rose. And so this rose is for you. I want to just acknowledge these beautiful souls because, again, it's you who make this church what it is. So for those who have completed their blessing, this next round of blessing tree pledges, we want to honor Mozella Ademiliui. Mozella, wonderful. We acknowledge and honor Benjamin Bishop. Thank you. Thank you, Benjamin. And we honor Miss Teresa Coleman, who is not here. She's living in Nevada, but still is a part of this church and decided to complete another pledge. We honor you, Teresa. And of course, our beloved Angela Rose Corley. Thank you so much, Angela, Reverend Angela, for all that you do in this ministry. And Miss Elizabeth Guran, yes, thank you so much, Elizabeth. And Diana Kendrick, we thank you. We thank you for adding to our blessing tree. And Miss Nicole Maywa. Nicole, thank you so much. We're grateful and thankful. Miss Albertina Lane, my sister, my wish sister, Albertina Lane, thank you so much for all that you do and share with this ministry and all that you do and share with me and my mother on a personal level. So a shout out to my sister, Albertina Lane. Also, Miss Mia, Andrea, and Sarai Pittman. Thank you so much for Mia, Andrea, Sarai Pittman. And I see the names are coming up, but they're in a different order on my sheet, but we still shall remember everybody. So I also thank Miss Josephine Pamphile. Josephine, thank you. Thank you. And of course to our beloved Keisha Reynolds and Patricia Williams, we thank you. And a special shout out to Keisha. As you know, we all have been paying for our blessing tree and we've been offering our tithes for a number of years, all with the goal of being able to retire our mortgage. And we had done such a beautiful job. But I wanted to give a shout out to Keisha Reynolds, who was a board member and suggested that we reinvest some of our investment holdings and dividends back in so we could pay down the mortgage even quicker. And we did. So thank you. Shout out to Keisha Reynolds and Patricia Williams. And of course, our own treasurer, who is so diligent and keeps us on track as well, Mr. Gareth Rosenau. Gareth, we thank you for all you do, again, for this ministry and for the heart and soul you put into making sure that we are financially on track. We give love and a shout out to Reginald Stanley. Reginald, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And last but not least, to our very own, a very special shout out to Miss Deborah Tracy Wildy. Deborah Tracy Wildy. We thank you, Deborah, or Tracy as we call you. But when I want to really, get her attention, I'll call her Deborah Tracy. But we want to thank you for all that you do. All of our people who completed their blessing pledges, we honor you. We're grateful and thankful for you. And may this new year truly be a year of abundant blessings for you. We are grateful. Thank you. And remember, it's not too late. You can still pledge and give to buy a rememberable plaque or an acorn or a brick in the name of someone who you love, because we're continuing with our blessing tree, because we're going to be moving into the 21st century. We have much to do. So we're grateful and thankful to each of you. This rose is for all of our pledgees, but it's also for you. Thank you so much. Unity of Washington, D.C. All right, beloved ones, I really feel like I'm in that Christmas spirit. And while we're going to continue with our series on conscious healing, I did want to mention that now I thought this was interesting because it's actually the second Sunday in December, which would sort of make it the second week of Advent. However, there are only 2 more Sundays. So it's the second Sunday in the month, but it's the third Sunday of Advent. And, Advent is that time that talks about the arrival and the coming of the Christ, the birth of that Christ spirit that comes into our hearts and souls. And so it usually is surrounded by 4 themes of hope, peace, joy, and love. And there are certain ones that have different orders. Sometimes people have hope and joy and peace and love. It doesn't matter. But the themes are hope, peace, joy, and love. What wonderful things. And these are the gifts that we're given. With the birth of the child, we know that the Magi came and they gave gifts to the Christ. Well, these are the gifts that we receive: hope, we receive peace, we receive love and joy. And as we were moving in, as I was thinking about the series that we are doing, I thought usually during this time is a time in which we talk about peace, peace on earth and goodwill to all of God's people, peace on earth. But peace is an inside job. Peace is an inside job. It begins within us. And one of the most powerful things that I think that we could ever experience is peace of mind. Peace of mind. So, yes, thank you. We could hear you. Okay. Peace of mind. So we're going to just adjust this a little bit and move it forward. All right. So we're having peace of mind, and I can't think of a better gift for peace of mind than to celebrate the gift of peace. All right, the gift of peace. Yeah. It's, all right. Actually, now you're highlighting my forehead. So, yeah. It wasn't that bad, actually. It wasn't that bad today. So can you do me a favor? Because I'd like to see what I'm looking at. And if we can just give me there we go. So that actually is not really good. It's not I know, I apologize to all you people, but I want to look good. So let's just move this back a little bit. Because I'm being washed out even more. So, and isn't it wonderful that we have all this light? Let's come back. Okay, thank you. Maybe we'll come back. So let's see how that looks. I don't know why we're looking blue. Thank you. Okay. All right. And let me see how I look face on, please. I just want to see something. So when we do face on. Okay, that's good. You know what, folks? This is good. So I apologize for all of this moving around and stopping and starting because of the light, but it's okay. So I'm just going to move right into where I was before. And I was talking about the notion of peace on earth, goodwill to all, and how peace really is an inside job. And that the greatest thing that we could experience is peace of mind. Because you know what it feels like when you don't have peace of mind, right? There's angst and you're in a conflict, and it doesn't feel good. So peace of mind really is a part of our spiritual healing. It's really a part of being one with having great mental health, mental wholeness, peace of mind. So if you recall last week, as I introduced this series that we're going to be working with on healing or a consciousness or the consciousness of healing, and I talked about healing on the various levels of light that various levels of existence that we live on, the various levels of existence that we experience throughout our lives. And if we are going to truly come into our power, come into our abilities and skills, then we're going to have to learn how to be whole and well on all levels. Right? On all the levels. If we're going to be successful in handling and moving through and overcoming all of what I call the craziness that life is presenting us right now. And isn't life presenting a little bit of cray-cray? It's crazy. But we know, as I shared last week, that what's really going on is transformation. What's really going on is healing. And sometimes healing is messy, and sometimes healing can be painful. So we want to be, in order for us to be able to handle this next evolutionary leap of transformation and growth, we want to make sure that we are whole holy, and well in mind, body, heart, and spirit. Whole and well physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. That if we could find that wholeness and balance on all of those levels, then, of course, we're able to handle anything and everything that life brings our way. So I talked about physical healing last week, but now I want to talk a little bit about mental healing, or what I consider the quality and the state of our mental health. Our mental health. Now, while physical health is certainly important for all of us to have, it's an important expression. But I'll tell you this, our mental health is even more important. Why? Because we live, for the most part, inside our heads, right? That's where we really live and experience life, inside our head. And the mind is the seat of creativity. The mind is not only the seat of creativity, but it is the seat of our internal perceptions. It's the seat of our internal thoughts, all of which creates our world. The mind holds the consciousness or the states of awareness that we experience that dictate the life we're going to experience and therefore live. So we have to think of it like this. There's a thought that we say in New Thought that life is consciousness, meaning the quality of your thoughts, the quality of your perceptions and your feelings, all of that influences your life, and it influences how you experience life. How you experience life. And so we want to make sure that our thoughts, our inner world is healthy. And if we want to change something in our lives, because we experience life by healing what's taking place in the mind, then we need to, if we're going to change our lives and transform our lives, then we need to start by changing our mind. You got to change your mind. If what you're thinking and feeling is not serving you well and lifting you up, you need to change your mind. One of my favorite scriptures comes actually from Romans 12, verse 2. And this is what it says in Romans 12, verse 2. It says, "And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind." So, be ye not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of the mind. This is a powerful scripture that I love. I love to hear and read this particular scripture because there's a whole lot here. First of all, it says to us that we are not to be conformed by this world or conformed to this world. Now listen, most of our suffering comes from the fact of trying to conform to the world, right? It's trying to, either we're trying to fit in where we really don't fit in. We might be a circle and trying to fit into a square peg, or either we're trying to be something that we're not, right? Or perhaps we're trying to do something that is not ours to do. You know, I would love to try to play the piano like the maestro here, but that's not mine to do. I might even want to sing with the choir, but that again is not mine to do, you know? So we try to do things that aren't ours, to be things because someone else wants us to be what they image us to be. And all of these things cause some kind of angst in our being, right? They cause an inner angst. They cause mental and emotional suffering, and maybe even cause us to feel alienated from our true sense of self. Now, that's a bad place to be when you are alienated from your own self. When you're not comfortable, in your own skin. And doesn't that feel bad when you're not comfortable being who you are? Because look, this is that's a hard road to walk, because wherever you go, there you are. And so you might as well learn to be comfortable within yourself and with yourself. But yet, when we try to conform to the world, and the world may have a different standard than we do, it causes suffering and emotional discontent and inner conflict. So be ye not, it says, do not try to conform to the world. We know the statement Jesus said, you can be in it, but not of it. Don't try to be of the world. That might not be yours to do. So that's the first part. Be ye not conformed. Do not conform to this world. And then it says, but be ye transformed by what? The renewing of your mind. I love that. So we don't have to try to change for somebody else. Don't try to be something that you think, because it's never going to work, because eventually they're going to see the real you anyway, right? Because it's going to come out anyway. You can only hold up the charade but for so long. They always say, if you really want to get to know somebody, live with them. Because then you'll really get to see what's going on. So here's the thing. So it says, be renewed. So be renewed by the transformation, the transforming of your mind. So if we are not going to change because we're trying to conform, the change, true change, is going to come as we change what? The mind, our mind. So change then brings about a renewing, a refreshing, right, a changing of our minds. So we should stop trying to change first all these outer things and outer conditions. Change your mind first. So that is, we then need to know, well, what's going on in my mind? What is going on in my mind, in my life, and in my affairs? What is going on? So the mind is a powerful tool. It's one of our and I say it's a tool, friends. The mind is something we should be able to use. We use it to create our realities. We can use it to create our experiences. The mind is a powerful tool that it either can lift us up into heights unknown, lift us up into realities and experiences that we desire, or it can also take us into the depths of despair and causing us to create that which we do not want to experience or to live. So if we want to be healthy, which is what we want to do, we want to have a certain mental health. We want to be whole and well in our inner being so that we can enjoy the fullness of life, and so that we can, while we're enjoying it, we can actually use the mind to create the life we want to live. And as I said, life is consciousness, so we're really living our lives in the innermost part of our being, not out here. We're living in here. So to be healthy-minded is to really be in touch with what's going on in my inner world and my inner state of being. So we want to figure out what's happening here. And that means that we should try to understand if the mind can be used as a tool to create the life we want to live, then we want to make sure that we understand how to use the mind properly. We want to make sure that we understand, well, what are the trappings of the mind that would keep me limited in my consciousness? What are the trappings of the mind that would keep me stuck in creating unwanted experiences and realities? What are the trappings? And so I thought, let's look at that. I wanted to jump right in and figure out what are some of the trappings. And then we'll go through a couple of them. And then maybe next week we can look at the solutions, because we got to get to the solutions. But first, we should know what the traps are. And there are many, many, but these are some that are identified. I wanted to jump right in with the big one of the big trappings that we have. And it has to do with something that we all experience. And even though this is a major trapping that everyone experiences, it really, we'll go into it more deeply when we talk about healing our emotions. However, I want us to recognize that emotions are triggered and set into motion by our thoughts, right? So even though this trap here is one that hangs us up emotionally, the start of it begins with a thought. So I want to talk about the thought. A big trap of the mind that I'm speaking of is fear. Fear. And we'll go into many different levels of fear later on in the series. But I want you to know that fear is a very powerful thing. We all know the traditional statement that says fear is a false evidence appearing real, right? We've heard that before. But fear is also a very powerful, and it's not only a powerful emotion, but it is also a situation in which the mind becomes trapped. When we are in fear, the mind becomes trapped and we are not able to see what we want to see and live the way we want to live and function in the way that we want to function. So I want to look at this thing called fear. Now, I know, yes, I do know that there are healthy doses of fear. There are times in which fear is a good thing because, it might be alerting you. You need to get up out of here. You need to run. You need to move and do some things. Yeah, if we can just come this way, just bring it all the way over. So I do know that fear there are some healthy expressions of fear. So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the fear that actually stops us. It stops us from experiencing, and it stops us from expressing our highest self. I'm talking about the fear that stops us from being and living our highest and fullest potential, right? I'm talking about the fear that causes us to project a level of negative and limiting vibrations that actually hold us back. That's what we want to be rid of. Charles Fillmore, who is the co-founder of Unity, he said this. He said, fear, and we'll talk a little bit more about this when we get to emotional healing. But he said, fear is a paralyzer of mental action. Fear is a paralyzer of mental action, meaning that when you have a sufficient amount of fear, it can actually stop you in your tracks. It can stop you from thinking straight. It can paralyze you so that you begin to close off yourself to the access to divine wisdom, access to the wisdom and the knowledge that comes from on high. So fear is a really powerful thing, but we want to make sure that we are keeping it in a positive sense when we're not talking about fear within the self, right? So it can stop you from the ability to still the mind so that you can receive guidance. Yes, if you can just turn it this way a little bit. It'll stop you from thinking straight. It'll stop you from stilling your mind so you receive that high guidance. It can prevent you from making good choices, because when you're fearful, you might not choose the best way or the best option. So, I like to say it this way, that fear is a projection of thought about the possibility of harm or something that can or will diminish the self. When I think that there's going to be something that will diminish my sense of self, my being, or harm me, fear ensues. But it's a projection of thought about the possibility of harm. It's a projection of thought about the diminishing of myself. And it stops me from being and expressing my highest and most wonderful self. So we'll get more with that when we talk about healing our emotions. But just keep this in mind, that thought precedes your emotions. So sometimes I'm just angry. Yes, but what is the thought that is producing the emotion of anger? or whatever. So we keep in mind the thoughts that we are thinking, they will also influence the emotions that we are going to experience. So back to talking about the trappings then of the mind. Here's a trapping. What about repetitive thoughts? Repetitive thoughts. Has anyone ever been trapped in thinking the same thought over and over and over and over again? And usually, because this is how the mind functions sometimes, usually it will be a negative thought. A negative thought that we have. If you can lift it up so my head is not cut off, that'll be so great. Thank you. So usually it's a limited thought, a negative thought that we keep repeating over and over. It's that one negative comment that was directed towards you that you keep repeating, right? Or it's that one negative experience that you have that you keep replaying in your mind over and over until you replay it over and over in your mind until you now produce the emotion of resentment. See, when you replay a thought, a negative thought over and over, it can lead to the emotion of resentment, right? Which is the resending of a thought over and over again. And all of that then begins to play with our emotions, and it keeps us stuck. So I'm thinking about this. When I have a thought that I play over in my mind, sometimes I'll have a whole conversation. How about the conversations that you keep having about another person? What they did, what they said, and you keep having this conversation that takes place only in your own mind. You're not having it out here with the person. You're having the conversation with yourself about what you, and getting into the emotion, getting upset again, getting angry again, and another thing, and maybe saying the things that you wish you had said, but you'll say it now in your mind because nobody else is in here, so you can really say what you think. I've done that. I've been down that road, but it's not serving me well. It doesn't keep me healthy and whole. It is unnerving. So I want to look at the trappings of my mind, repetitive thoughts. And very similar to repetitive thoughts, the mind gets also entrapped with incessant thoughts, incessant thinking. Now, that's a little different than a repetitive thought where you're thinking about a particular thought, a thought over and over. Incessant thinking means that the mind is constantly thinking over and over. What I call there's so much chatter. You have a lot of mental chatter. The mind is thinking. You're having conversations. It's an incessant ability to keep thoughts going in your mind, chatter that is filling your consciousness, and it may not be thoughts that you want, right? It's just constant. It's one thought after another. It's one comment after another. Have you ever noticed how the mind loves to make commentary on things? It's like we're like newscasters, well, I don't think they should have done that, and there's a whole big commentary. Or it could be one judgment after another. Why'd they do that? I don't really like that. I don't like them. I think I would have done it this way. But constant commentary, constant judgment, constant assessment, analyzing. There's nothing wrong with assessment and analyzing, but in its right and perfect place. Not as an activity that is constantly going on in your mind. Have you ever said, I wish my mind would just shut up? Have you ever said that to you? I wish I could just turn off my mind. Turn it off so that I would have no thoughts running through my head, And this inability to turn off the mind, to stop this incessant thinking. And we'll get to some solutions later on in the series on how to deal with all of these traps of the mind. But I want to point them out because I want us to be able to see where we are in that. And very similar to not only repetitive thoughts or incessant thinking, it's our inability to focus. Our inability to focus the mind. because it's like our mind, not only do we have incessant chatter, but our mind is scattered all over the place. I got this thought, that thought. The next thing I start off thinking about this, and before you know it, I'm thinking about that, and that leads to that thought. Now I'm on here, and we cannot necessarily focus the mind. And sometimes it's important for us to focus, to have that ability, because suppose you want to contemplate an idea or a thought, you need to be able to focus the mind, to direct an energy. The mind produces energetic energy that can be like a laser focus, right? But if you can't focus the mind, then it's hard for you to produce whatever it is that you need to produce. It's hard for you to hold that one-pointed consciousness. It's hard for you to hold on to a thought, because what we like to say, in truth, when we're talking about the law of mind action, that a thought held in mind produces after its kind. But if you can't even hold the thought in mind between you thinking of apples, the next thing you know, you're talking about the laundry, and you got to be able to, for creation and creativity, to hold the thought, to see where the thought is unfolding. So when I talk about this whole ability of not having our mind scattered, our thoughts scattered, because thoughts are things. There's energy, and when you can focus your thought, you are gathering and garnering energy. The energy needed to change something or produce something, but you've got to be able to stay with it, to stick with it, right? So, to talk about all of these things, the trappings of the mind, if we don't understand where it is, where we are in the process and what's happening in our minds, then it's hard for us to really be co-creators, to be conscious creators with what is going on in the world and how we can change our thoughts and change our minds, therefore change our lives. It's extremely important. Especially one of the things that the mind gets trapped in is this fear of uncertainty. The mind likes to think that it knows that it knows. It wants to know what's coming up next. And this is a season and time that we're living in that's very uncertain, which is why many people are unnerved, and sometimes myself included. But we have this feeling of unease because we're not certain of what's going to take place, what will be happening in the future, what's coming up next, and if it's every day, it's changing. So the mind then, because it wants to feel a level of certainty, this is what it'll do. It'll go about making up stuff. The mind, because it has a proclivity to want to know and to feel certain. If it does not, it will start to make up stuff. And what we'll do is we begin to make up stories about what we think is going on. We'll make up stories about what we think is really happening. Now, it may not be true, but the mind is going to make up a story. And what we'll find is that the mind will cause you to speak as if you think you know that this is the gospel, this is the truth, and you don't know any of that. But your mind will have you believing it because it cannot deal with the uncertainty of life, of not knowing. So my statement is, don't believe everything you think, because it may or may not be true. Don't believe everything that you think. And not only will the mind make up stuff, but it'll add some pictures, because the mind thinks in pictures as well. So now you got a thought that you've made up, and then you're going to add to this made up story by using your imagination, by now putting some image to what you think, to the story you're creating. See, an image and thought's a powerful thing because creation will come, but what if you're not imaging the right thing? What if you're not seeing the right thing? What if you're seeing something limited, imaging something limited, fearful, negative? You're going to produce more of that. And all that will do is bear out the story that you're telling yourself. I hope you get the subtlety of what I'm saying. So we want to be able to use the imagination coupled with our thoughts, but to produce what we want to see. And here's the thing, the mind will have a tendency to see what it wants to see. And the mind will have a tendency to see from the outer as opposed to the inner, seeing with that literal eye. And we all know that you can't believe everything you see either. And when we get to the spiritual component, we'll understand that there's a level of seeing that's beyond the physical seeing. There's a level of seeing that's beyond the mental seeing or thinking something into being. It's actually spiritual seeing. Seeing not with the mind's eye, which is powerful because that's a creative tool. The mind's eye is powerful, but it's even more powerful when you begin to see with spirit's eyes or with what we call the third eye, when you see from that inner place of wisdom. But that's when we get to spiritual healing, because we have to develop the capacity to see with the third eye. Okay? So whatever it is, friends, whatever we're doing, I want us to be vigilant, to mind the mind, to mind your mind, so that you have an understanding of what are the quality of thoughts that you are holding in your mind, because that's going to trigger some emotions. And what's the quality of what you're seeing in your mind's eye? Because that will help to manifest what you will experience in the outer as well. We must be vigilant to guard our minds as well as our hearts. And we'll talk about guarding the heart when we get to healing our emotions. But this is such an important part for us to recognize that we live in an internal world. And I want us, because we're not going to be able to go to today through the solutions that are going to help us as we move through some of these traps and how to avoid the traps of the mind. But in the meantime, we need to mind the mind. And so next week, we'll look at solutions that can help us. And there are many more traps that we fall into, but I just wanted to identify a few of them. Because when we get to the solutions, that will cover whatever mental trap we fall in. We can apply it on that level. So in the meantime, for this week, I want you to mind your mind, okay? I want you to mind your mind. I want you to take the time to notice what energy are your thoughts either adding to you or taking away from you. What's the level and the quality of your thoughts? Are they pure and whole, or are they negative and limiting? Begin to mind your mind, to really think of what it is that you are experiencing. And I want you to ask yourself this question. Are you using your mind, or is the mind using you? Are you using your mind, or is your mind using you? And I'll say this, the difference in the answer that you get will be the difference between whether you really have a healthy mental state of being or an unhealthy one. Are you using your mind, or is your mind using you? Meaning, are you unconscious? Are you reactive? Are you just regurgitating? That's the key. So join us next week as we continue with our series on conscious healing. And I want to get to the solutions for the traps that we might find ourselves in. In the meantime, I know that this will be a wonderful opportunity for you to go within and to be present. Be present to what is happening in your inner world. Because life is consciousness. Let's live it to the fullest and the highest and the best. And I'm grateful and thankful, and I'll see you all next week. Blessings and namaste. Namaste. And now, oh, thank you, beloveds. And now we'll have some special music, I believe, with Mr. Norman Brentley again. Thank you.
Last week, singer Sophie Lynn was credited with always bringing a message to her music. True. Instrumentalists, however, are handicapped in that capacity because they don't have powerful words working for them. I will try to get around that by sharing some of the text of this song. I only want the world for Christmas, the blue, green, forever turning world for Christmas, to restore, to repossess. So please make it last. My fate is in your hands. So give me, oh, give me. So give me, please give me. Oh, give me this present for my future. The world for Christmas is what she might wish for if a newborn could speak.
That was beautiful. Thank you, Norman. And I think music does carry its own message, even if it doesn't have words, if it's just an instrumental, because we feel it. And feeling it is just as good as hearing it. So I thank you for that. And I always feel it when you're playing your music. So thank you for that wonderful song and message in music. So let's just take a moment and just see if we can have a few minutes of entering into the quiet place, into the secret place of the Most High. So I'm going to invite you just to take a few deep breaths and to allow yourself to become comfortable and still, if only for a moment, so that we can still the mind and open the heart. That's been my spiritual mantra for a while now. To still my mind and open my heart. So breathe deeply and fully, because as we breathe, as we send this divine life force that courses through the body, we send also thoughts of peace. 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 Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. Let's keep our mind on peace, the peace of God, that internal and eternal expression of the One. My mind is clear. My mind is at ease as I access the Spirit of the living God. Peace, be still. Peace, be still. Oh, thank you for the peace that passes all understanding, the peace that heals all misunderstanding, and the peace that centers us in the presence of God. We breathe in peace. We live in peace. So once again, just take a deep, deep breath. And so it is. Amen and amen. So, beloved ones, I thank you for joining with us this morning, sharing your light, your love, and your peace. We want to take a moment to affirm our blessing for this series, for today. And it says, I am at one with the healing presence of God. I am whole in mind, in spirit, mind, and body. I am a conscious healer. Praise God. And so it is. Amen and amen. I am that I am. I thank you for the gifts that you share so lovingly with this ministry and enabling us to share with others. I'm so pleased that we're able to still touch so many families and people who might be in need, especially to feed our seniors and to feed those families that might be experiencing food limitation. And we know that it is the divine right of every child of God to have their basic needs met. And so wherever we can give and wherever we can share, we are grateful and thankful to be able to do so. And it is you who enables us to do so. It is you who shares so lovingly out of your heart that blesses this ministry. And I'm grateful beyond measure. I am thankful for you, and I'm thankful for God touching your heart and moving through you. You may find at the end of the service many ways in which you can share your gifts, but the affirmation and the blessings for our gifts are this: it is divine love through me that blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Affirm that in your heart. And beloved ones, thank you. And open up to this wonderful season. Yes, things are happening, but the glory of God is to still be celebrated. And the birth of the Christ is still to be celebrated in you. So please do join us as we'll have our Christmas Eve coming up. We'll have our New Year's Eve. So we're still here for you. In the meantime, be at peace. Mind your mind. Let's sing our closing songs together.